Hey, we got a great show coming up for you today. We're gonna go over to Stockton, Missouri and do a little fishing. Got Tom Mann back with us again today, and a super friend of mine, Mr. Harold Knight. We're gonna learn something about calling a Canadian goose. So stay with me. I'm Hank Parker.
1, 2, 3, 4. The house needs painting, the grass needs mowing. Where's he at?
Hi, this is Hank. Sorry I missed your call. Leave me your name and your number and I'll get back to you.
He's gone fishing.
This is Hank Parker's Outdoor Magazine, featuring the first sportsman to win both the Bassmasters Classic and the title Bass Angler of the Year, Hank Parker.
It's like a spotted bass. Well, I'm telling you what. Have you ever seen, that's a spotted bass. Now they really cut up. He's different from a largemouth. You could see the way he jumped and cut up. He's rougher feeling. They got an extra row of teeth opposed from a largemouth. On their tongue, you can take your finger and you can feel it. It's easy to identify a spotted bass sometimes. This bass, you know, he's got a lot different coloration than probably your largemouth. Your largemouth's a little bit more gray. This fish is a lot more green. Also, these little holes on the bottom of his gill plate show up more than what happens on a largemouth or at the bottom of his mouth. Feisty little fish. They're a lot of fun to catch. A lot like a smallmouth. He'll jump a lot more than a largemouth too. Catch me another spotted bass. Catch me a fish off that log with a turtle on it. That's always a good pattern. Turtle, something wrong with that turtle, I think. What his problem is, I guess he's trying to hold on, keep from getting wet. October's pretty cold out this afternoon. He probably don't want to get wet. There ought to be a bass sitting there fixing to ambush that big turtle. Like that turtle stuck on that log. Like he's got his leg caught in the log. I think he has. I believe he's got his leg caught down in the crack. Stump. Look like he's been there a while. Yep. There he goes. How about that? I don't know how long he's been there, but he sure looks like he's glad he cut off that log. I think he's had enough of that log. Saved his life. My good deed for the day. Saved a turtle. I tell you what, I thought that the timber in here with this spinnerbait may be the way to go, but that's about the third time I've seen minnows move out in the channel. I may get out there on the edge of that channel and take a crankbait and find these fish out there bordering that channel in deeper water. If I see that again, I will make a move. That's something too, you know, always watch your water, and I say this time and time again, but that's important. A lot of times these fish will give you a clue as to where they're at just by watching the water. You'll see a minnow flush or you'll see some bait jump, and you'll end up finding a lot of fish just because of that one minnow, just that one school of bait flush. There's a fish. I don't know, a little spotted bass. He was out here in a little deeper water. Came out of forked trees. The fish was probably 15 feet deep, suspended up in the top of them. Little Kentucky. But I still don't think this is a pattern. I I fished too many of these trees and not caught any more. That's the only hit I've had, so I think that I'm gonna ease out here. Maybe I saw those bait flush again. I'm gonna try that crankbait on the edge of this creek channel. It's a little bit deeper water. Maybe a little bit different. I think when you make 4,000 casts in the trees and you don't get any more action than what I got this morning, it's definitely time to make a move. You know, I still ain't got that double cluck down like I need it. You know,
You'll get it, just keep practicing.
I don't know, something about the guttural.
Next, Hank takes Outdoor Magazine indoors for some entertaining moments with world champion game caller Harold Knight. And still to come, we'll learn from Hank and bait and tackle developer Tom Mann some important info for successful fishing.
I'll tell you what, Tom, I'm gonna bite this worm off. My dentist keeps telling me quit doing that. I'm gonna put on a little bitty surface plug. Now this little plug, and Tom, you call them Topwater baits, don't you?
Yeah, that's Topwater, yeah.
I call them surface lure. I'm gonna take this little surface lure. It's got a
Go for it with Ryobi. Tough, dependable reels for any kind of fishing. Ryobi. There's never been a better reason to go fishing.
Ron, this is the only lure that'll catch fish on this lake. I got half of mine not to let you fish it because you don't have extra strong trilene on that reel. Don't lose it.
The only place this lure is going is down a big old hog's throat. Uh-oh.
Doggone it, Ron, I'm going to show you why you need trilene. It's up to 20% stronger. It's the line the tournament pros use, and it's the line that set 400 world records in just 12 months.
The revolutionary fish formulas are used by the world's best fishermen. Enough said?
Let me introduce you to our special guest today. I'm really flattered and pleased to have Mr. Harold Knight on the show. Harold won the World Champion Goose Calling Contest in 1979, a real good personal friend of mine, and one of the very few people that I know in the world today that can call all species, and he's as good at it as they come.
Appreciate you saying that, Hank.
Well, Harold, I'll tell you what, you know, we've had the opportunity over the last few years to hunt together. I've never seen anybody that can call as many different species as well as you can call them. Let's start out and tell our guests a little bit about the goose call. It's unusual. You know, most of the calls that we blow and most of the goose calls that you see around the country, and I'm sure with all your travel, is a reed type call.
Well, that's the most popular call, I'd say, Hank, would be your reed type call. The call that I've got and use and manufacture is the tube call, and the biggest difference in these two calls is the concept of it. One has a reed, which is a mylar reed, most of them,
right,
on the inside, and this call has a piece of rubber latex across the end. And like I say, the concept is completely different. Sometimes it confuses people when they try to pick one up and blow it and then pick the other one up and blow it.
Let me just show you the difference between a reed call and a tube call. Let me blow this reed call just a minute or two. Now, from a long distance, that sounds pretty good, a real long distance, but up close, nothing will compare to the tube call. Harold, blow them the tube call, let them see the difference. Man, I can see why you won the world. No question, that just blows my mind. I've blown this thing for about 2 years, and I hadn't got anywhere close. That's just incredible.
Hank, you've got a lot of talent blowing a call. I watched you blow duck calls, goose calls, and you do have a lot of talent. Matter of fact, that's one thing that I guess I got to know you is when you were blowing a duck call one day.
Well, that goes back a few years. Duck call, I do pretty good on the ducks. You know, I don't blow it. I learned early in blowing in contests that I don't do as well in contests. I'm not a contest type caller. But in the wild, as far as calling the birds and knowing what to blow to the ducks and getting them to sit down on decoys, I don't have much problem.
They call that meat calling.
Meat calling. Well, then I'm a meat caller. I'm not a contest caller. I learned that real quick. But I enjoy the contest, and I really like, I know you travel around, you've seen a lot of different callers. Been involved, you judged once in the Arkansas State right down there in Stuttgart where they have the world contest just prior to the world, wasn't it?
I've judged several goose calling, duck, turkey, and I enjoy judging. I learn something every time I judge a contest.
I bet. It's kind of like a fishing tour. What is the one thing that you've seen out of all the traveling done, all the people that you've met that blow calls and blow them, what's the one requirement to be a good duck caller? What's it take to be a good duck caller?
Hank, it takes a lot of determination, and when a man's got the determination, he is going to practice, and there's absolutely no substitute for practice.
That's for sure. I've seen that.
He's got to put a lot of time in on it.
A lot of people blow a duck call. I blow a duck call. A lot of people blow a goose call. Now, it's an unusual goose call. Very few people that I've ever heard can blow that tube goose call. It just takes practice, like you say. If you know and get the right sounds down, the train sound, you know, where you just get the call. You can just kind of pick up and go with it.
Hank, I tell you what it's like. When you once get the sound on this, you know, you first make that sound that you know is a goose. It's just like riding a bicycle. You'll never forget
it. I agree with that. I agree with that. I had trouble getting the double cluck, but I never forgot. The more I progressed on it, I never forgot what I learned in the train sound.
You'll continually get better with it the more you practice. You're going to have to do a little more practice and quit fishing so much and start doing a little more blowing.
That's what I need to do. Let's show them how to blow a turkey call. We're going to run out of time. And this right here is something that fascinates me. Harold, I know that we don't have time to go through all of it, but your turkey calls, I know the tube calls here are the calls that you designed. And if you would, I want you to just pick out your favorite call there and blow us.
Well, you notice I had both of them on the same string, so I'll have to blow both of them. Both of them. This is my favorite calls right here. And I'll go through the little soft call. The hen is
hard to have one favorite.
Then here's getting a little more aggressive and loud. Now this is my all-time favorite right here, Hank. That's that calcing sound of an old hen. I like to use that up in the day hunting. It's just, I really like that call. You know,
our viewers probably wondered why we was in here by the fire doing this today. If we'd have been outside in the woods, we'd have just got run over by a big old gobbler.
By the way, you said gobbler, it will gobble too. You know, let's call it makes
it hear you make a gobbler. That's. You know, I believe every turkey I've ever seen in the woods had one of your calls because they sound just like you do.
Here's a little call, just a little mouth diaphragm. We have, you know, depending on individual preference, I got one with tape and one without. I'll put one in my mouth, and this is a real good call also.
Well, that sounds good too. I'll tell you what, do you think that you need a combination of calls? Like, say you got a big gobbler down there, it's hard to persuade late in the season, he's been shot at a time or two. You think you need probably more than just one particular call?
Definitely. Don't never be a one-call man. Learn to master at least 2 to 3 different calls in turkey hunting.
Or use the tube, use the slate, and use the diaphragm all together and give that turkey whatever he needs or whatever.
Another thing I always like to tell the people, hunters and whatever, to use the call they have the most confidence in, the one that they think they can use the best.
You know, that's true. I find the same thing with the duck call. I got one for long distance and one for close up. You know, last time you were here, Harold, you gave little Hank a duck call, and for 2 weeks he slept with the thing around his neck. He wouldn't put it down, and he's practiced a little bit. And I want to call him in here and let him blow it for you. Hank,
I'd like to hear it.
come up here, bud. I want you to turn around over here and sit down on my knee and show Mr. Knight that you've learned a little something about blowing the call. Now, he hadn't practiced quite as much as he ought to, but he's getting pretty good at it. Blow us a little bit on there. Give us a little feed, chuckling, a little calling. That's all right. Put your hand up there and open it up and go. That's good.
Next, Hank teams up with Tom Mann to bring you some of their most successful fishing tips.
The jigging pig and the plastic worm. You know, that's two of the most popular baits on the market today. And there's probably 100 different plastic worms and jigs available, but two of my favorite are Mann's auger tail, the worm that swims in the middle, the flipping waggler, a plastic worm that has more action on the fall than any bait I've ever used, and Stanley's tricolored jig trail with Mann's auger frog. Probably the deadliest big fish combination available. Now, I've put these lures together along with the Fenwick 20 satchel box to make them available to you on a Hank Parker Outdoor Magazine special offer. Let me show you what I put together. The Fenwick 20 has an amber lid that is see-through. You have adjustable dividers and positive drawdown latches making the box waterproof. We have two 20 packs of Mann's flipping wagglers, two 20 packs of FS 454 coated auger tail worms, two Stanley jigs, one with a Magnum flipping hook, the other with a lightweight casting hook for light line use, and a pack of auger frog trailers, my favorite trailer. This is the finest fishing value I know of anywhere today.
Hank's lure pack and tackle box can be yours for only $19.95 plus shipping and handling. Send check, money order, or call toll-free.
Order yours today. I'm gonna put on a little bitty surface plug. Now this little plug, and Tom, you call them topwater baits, don't you?
Yeah, that's top water, yeah.
I call them surface lure. I'm gonna take this little surface lure. It's got a prop on both ends, just a little spinner type on both ends, little spinner prop. All you do with this little bait is cast it out there and let it set a second, just pop it along, and those little blades will make the noise. And you can make a variation of noise depending on where you hold your rod tip, how you hold your rod. If you hold your rod tip up high, it'll be real quiet. If you hold your rod tip low and jerk it, you can make it a little bit louder. And it depends on how much wind you got, you know, and how deep a water you're trying to fish. Now, we're fishing shallow and got just a little bit of breeze, so you really won't need a lot of noise. That's why I chose this little bait with these small props. Now, if I wanted a bait,
Look at that.
to make a lot, you called a no. Maybe I took my worm off too soon.
Oh, he got off.
Well, that's good. Maybe he's waiting on my topwater bait. But if you wanted a bait to make a lot of noise, then you would choose a bait that had a bigger set of propellers. But now I just wanted a little quiet bait, so I'm going to try this one.
All right, well, he was a pick it along here. Why?
When you're fishing these little topwater baits, just throw them out. I always let them set a second or two. I don't let them sit there till all the rings disappear. I read that somewhere in some magazine when I was a kid. You throw it out and let it set, or smoke a cigarette. Well, I didn't smoke. I always wondered what you did if you didn't smoke a cigarette. But you just let it sit there for a second, and then work it back by little short jerks. Now, I keep my rod tip fairly low, again, if I want it to make some noise, and I'll get it up higher if I'm just wanting to kind of ease it along a little quieter. Little short twitch with the rod tip, take up the slack with the reel. And Tom's caught another fish while I'm over here trying to tell you how to use a topwater bait. How can I tell them how to use a topwater bait with you catching all these fish?
Look at that, he's a little better too. Oh, he's a little
See there, he hit my topwater bait. You caught him over here around this stub. I'm gonna throw this
right
bait
by
over
that
there.
stub here, Hank.
Throw away, see if you can get one to come up and hit that top water bait you talking about there, boy.
Surface lure, Tom.
Surface lure then. That surface lure.
I saw some activity on the surface, you know, and usually when you do that, if you
Well,
go to,
when you get right up in that little bit shallow water, they'll hit that thing.
yeah,
It's a little deep where you're throwing in now.
right,
Just right for a worm.
just right for a worm. You know, that's part of it. Just what you said right there is very important. A lot of people say, well, why you use a topwater bait or why you use a worm or one of your most famous baits, I guess, the Little George, why you use this or why you use that. You always try and select the right bait for the kind of conditions or the kind of water you fish it.
That's right. You don't use that bait everywhere.
That's right. There's no one universal bait. And the reason I'm using a top water bait here is I've seen some surface activity. There's some shallow moss beds, and it's just a real good water temperature 62, 63 degrees for the surface. So I selected a surface bait based on that data. And I think that's important. I wouldn't go out in 50 foot of water in the wintertime and start using a surface bait. So it's important to select the right bait under the right conditions. And it's all very simple. It's not so complex that you have to know everything about fishing. It's very simple. It's just using common logic.
Hey, you ought to pick one up over there. If I don't get him first, I'm going around you and get him, boy.
That's where I wanted to throw.
Look at that. He hit it. That's a good one, Hank. Look at the ball from that fish, man.
I might have to put, there you come up there and got that top water. Come up there and got that top water.
There's one behind me right over here. I believe they're going to go to biting, you know what?
We got over here in the shallow moss where we got the right baits on. Look at
Yes,
that fish. You're not bad, Tom. Getting better. Pretty little fella. Boy, that fish there needs to eat some. Don't you look how streamlined his belly is.
Yeah.
That's why he come out to that top water twice. He's hungry. Well, he went back in there. He's going after something.
I got to put me some tilapias in here. Fatten them up a little bit.
Tom, what you got on there now?
All right, that's a walking bait. We call it the man dance. That's like your Zara spook and plugs like that, you know, walks across the water. It's a stick bait. It don't do anything. You have to make it do it with your rod tip. You see I'm doing it with my rod, your rhythm with your wrist,
Right.
and your rod handle at the same time. It's a three-way deal. You got to do your rod tip, your wrist, and your handle, and keep them all in rhythm, and just make it go to walking like that on the water. Twitch, 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 twitch. That bait, without a doubt, is one of the all-time greats on catching big bass, you know.
Right.
I mean,
like that bait an awful lot in real clear
boy,
water.
Yeah, like out at Las Vegas and Lake Mead, place like
Right.
that. Oh, boy, I catch a lot of them in these ponds around here with it, especially right in the hot summer months, right up in the middle of the day, Hank.
What you do, what's the trick to it when he hits it?
Well, you don't snatch him till he snatches you.
That's pretty well true, in my opinion, with all surface plugs or top water baits
that's
or
right.
buzz baits or anything. When that fish hits it, I don't just set the hook. I'll wait till the kind of, you see your bobber go under almost.
Yeah, well, he pulls back, because you'll miss so many fish if you don't.
I think that's a real important tip, is when you're fishing a top water bait, to let that fish take that bait and wait till you feel the fish before you set it. Most people set on impulse. When they see that fish strike, you'll set the hook. If you'll let the fish take that bait till you feel him, you'll very rarely ever miss one. But if you set when you feel him or when you see him, as soon as you see him, in other words, when you set then, you miss an awful lot of fish. Tell you, Tom, I'm gonna try another bait, probably one of the most popular pond bait or lake baits that you can use. And
What's
that's
that?
a little minnow bait, just a little swimming minnow.
Oh, yeah.
Now that's a good bait because you can use that bait on the surface or you can bring it down 2 or 3 feet deep. And like we're fishing here, over 2 or 3 foot of moss, I can fish that bait on top and twitch it on top, just like I was the surface lure, but then I can take it underneath all the way down and bump the top of the grass. And I think the way these fish are acting, they're wanting to come up after the bait, but they're not wanting to come all the way up after the bait. So I think if I get this bait in there and maybe get a fish to swirl at it a time or two, I can take it underneath the water and maybe get them to take it instead of whereas now they seem to miss the bait. You know, there's a little tip. I bet everybody out there keeps watching me do that. wetting that line or licking my line before I tie it on. Probably the most detrimental thing you can do to your line is when you tie a knot is pull that knot down or seat that knot with it dry. The friction creates that line or creates heat in that line, and that'll cause a real weak place at your knot. So if you'll wet your line, dip it in the water, just run it through your lips, and wet that line to lubricate it a little bit before you seat it, I think you'll find you got a lot stronger knot.
You reckon your dentist was watching when you bit that line?
My dentist has fussed at me so much you won't believe it. Don't you look at this big boy.
Watch him jump out.
Look at this.
He is a dandy.
Isn't he a dandy? He is a humdinger. I want you to look at this fella. Let's look at this. You're talking about a bass. A bass is a ferocious fish. If they got up to 12 or 15 or 20 or 25 pounds in the lake I live on, I don't believe I'd go swimming.
Look at here. Hey, Hank.
Why don't you look at this?
I got me one over here.
What you do?
I caught me one, boy.
His ain't much bigger than mine.
Oh, he's a bunch
that
bigger.
Fish is not much bigger than the bait.
This one's a bunch bigger here.
That looks like a Tom Man bass.
Look at that, boy. Hey, boy.
If I couldn't do no better than that, I don't even believe I'd try.
That's all. Jimmy Houston 4. Eat your heart out, Jimmy.
At last, the ultimate in fish finding technology, Humminbird's LCR liquid crystal recorder, the depth sounder that bridges the gap between flashers and charts, combining the best features of both. Now the most advanced concepts in sonar are combined with state-of-the-art microcomputer innovations to bring boaters and fishermen more features and more fish-finding versatility than any other depth sounder on the market. LCR, the creation of a new generation from Humminbird.
There are 3 ways you can try moving closer to these fish. With a gas outboard, with a noisy electric, or with a quiet Minn Kota electric. To a fisherman, the choice is black and white. Minn Kota, the quiet power that catches fish.
You know, whether you're a tournament fisherman or a weekend angler, a good fishing partner makes all the difference. Now mine, she's a little better looking than most, but that beauty's a lot more than just skin deep. She's tough, and she's got what it takes to consistently give it her all. And she's there when I need her. Best of all, she's a Ranger.
Ranger boats. We still build them one at a time.
Hank Parker's Outdoor Magazine, sponsored by Fish Formula. We fool Mother Nature. Humminbird Depth Sounders. Minn Kota, quiet power catches fish. Ranger boats, we still build them one at a time. Ryobi, there's never been a better reason to go fishing. And by Trilene, extra strong.